Your kids could get free or low-cost health coverage from Medicaid or CHIP. Even if you've applied before, they may be eligible now. Kids up to age 19 are covered for checkups, vaccines, dentist visits, hospital care, and more. And if they already have Medicaid or CHIP, remember to renew every year. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Welcome, Wapham crew, guys, gals, fools, friends, fiends, foes, whoever may be listening beyond the Omniverse tonight. Let's climb aboard the mothership, secure our tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a rocky mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. I'm your host TessaTNT, and I am broadcasting live from the Mile High Clubhouse tonight. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and tuning in to my podcast. It is an honor and a pleasure to have you here with me this evening. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you wherever you may be out there beyond the Omniverse tonight. Last night we had trippy TikToks with me, TessaTNT. Tonight we are doing story time with me. And yeah, I already started a show, but then accidentally pressed stop, and when I checked the sound, it was all glitchy, so yeah, we're going to be running late this evening, it looks. So I don't believe I did the thought of the day yesterday, so I shall do that right now, and then I will do the thought of the hour. So yesterday's thought was, speak well of your enemies. You made them. Oh, how true that is. But I don't know, like, I've had people not like me that didn't even know me. Didn't know a thing about me. They just assumed things by my appearance, and they were pleasantly surprised in the end. But yeah, it's pretty crappy when somebody judges you without even knowing you. So the thought for this hour is, everyone smiles in the same language. Very true. Very true indeed. So we got a hodgepodge of different stories going on tonight. It looks like we're going to be starting off with a Reddit ghost story. When I was about, I think 8 years old, me and my family were in an old cabin, and in that cabin there was a room that always creeped us out. It was pink, and one day when we were going into the hot tub, my sister saw the doorknob slightly turn and saw a thing peeking out, but that's not the only thing that happened, because the last night that we were there, we all kept hearing chairs getting knocked over, even though there was no one downstairs. And we kept hearing footsteps on the stairs, so we left as quickly as possible. This one is under Reddit Humanoid Encounters. This is by brave_ad_6719. I need help identifying a tall figure I saw in the nature reserve. Hi, I live in Ireland, Dublin. I haven't made a post before on this subreddit. I'm not exactly a believer in cryptids like the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot, and haven't really encountered anything odd or strange in my lifetime. Around 2 days ago, I went on a walk in a local nature reserve near my house. Usually, I only walk around it to reach the path home, but this night I felt like I needed to clear my head a bit and walk the full route. There's a gate around the middle of the nature reserve that separates underbrush and unstable trees from the actual path, and has a bench in front which I usually sit to listen to music and just relax. When I sat down, I looked through the gate and saw the weirdest thing of my whole life. Looking through the gate, I saw what looked like a tall stick figure, like the ones you draw in school, standing around 7 feet from the gate. It was around 7 foot mark and looked like it was clipping the top of the smaller trees around it. When I saw the thing, I was just stuck looking at it, like something in my body just refused to work and everything just started tingling, like the feeling you get when your legs fall asleep, except all over my body. After around 5 minutes passed, I looked away and it felt like my neck was just jerked away by something, and just this overwhelming feeling to vomit overtook me. After getting up, I ran away and just kept running until I was completely out of breath. I vomited 3 to 4 times before I shakily walked home. That's when I noticed. When I arrived at the bench, it was 7. But at the time I ran away, checking my phone, it was 10. After this happened, I've just felt horribly sick, and I've been coughing badly. Even 2 days later, I just can't seem to relax and need to take deep breaths to feel relaxed. If anyone can help me get to the bottom of what I saw, I'd be really happy. And before anyone asks, no, I do not take any substances, and I'm not on any form of medication. So one of the comments here is by 1-fall-8143. You said you don't exactly believe in the paranormal, but you are describing a classical UFO abduction encounter experience. There's a theory that UFOs are from a different spatial dimension, like 4 or 5D, as opposed to our 3D world. And when we are confronted with something so foreign and strange to our minds, our brain substitutes images of things that don't make sense, like a 7-foot-tall stick person. I'm not saying that you for sure encountered a UFO either. If you read Jacques Farid's book, Passport of Magonia, he has gone through history and linked what we think of as UFOs and aliens in the modern world to the fae folk and fairies of the past, so maybe it's something more like that? Did you notice any marks or small wounds on your body? Or especially any burns, things you don't remember having before? After the incident, the missing time and you having such a pronounced physical reaction are very compelling toward some sort of anomalous encounter. I hope you will keep us updated if you find anything else out or remember anything else. So let's go. There's an update. Hi, OP here. I've been feeling a lot better the last few days and would like to provide some more details. Okay, so before we go there, I just want to say, like, I've seen UFOs. I haven't been closer than, I would say, like 12 to 16 feet from an UFO, but I've known people that have like looked up into the UFO and been that close, and they have that reaction. A lot of times also they end up getting cancer because of the radiation from that craft. So yeah, that's pretty disturbing. So first off, the figure looked to be around 7 to 8 feet in height, with arms that stretched to its legs, with a torso that looked skeletal and almost emaciated. The creature's head was bulbous and seemed to be moving slightly. Its head a lighter color than its body, which looked to be a deep black. The thing swayed in the wind of the night and was staring at me through the fence, where I faced the effects on my mind and my body being frozen in place, almost like I was held down, like sleep paralysis. I've drawn a small picture of my position and where it stood in front of me, if it helps, along with the details I can remember. Somebody else is saying that it sounds like an encounter with a mantid being. I mean, I guess that could be too. I don't know. This one is under Reddit Alien Abduction. This is by user North Mirth. I cuddled with a gray last night. Before we go into the story, you should know some stuff about me. If you would see me on the street, you would only see a big, muscular man with a long beard and bald head. Very frightening. The truth is, though, that I am utterly and completely in love with you and the cosmos. If you would walk by, you would probably feel them crashing down on you, the waves of my love frequency. I woke up in the middle of the night and noticed a strong, strange presence in my room. I felt something standing right in front of the bed, just staring at me. Of course, my body went into primal mode, and for a few seconds I was shocked and paralyzed with fear. Sensing what was going on, though, and having learned how to deal with fear, I closed my eyes again and started to regulate my breathing. Next thing I noticed was a very peculiar humming noise coming from somewhere. It felt and sounded like something big vibrating, then instinctively I sat up, got into my meditation pose to tune myself into whatever was going on around me and say hi. All the while the presence is just standing there, letting me acclimate to the situation. When I finally got rid of the fear and felt tuned in, I opened my eyes, and for the first time I saw what it was. A gray. The gray had big black eyes, very tiny mouth that was nearly not there, gray skin, and a slim body. He seemed so tiny. I just stood in awe, overwhelmed by love, and then stretched my arms towards them, like you would when convincing a little child to come into your arms. I could not help it. The gray actually took the bait and jumped into my hands. As I'm writing this, I cannot stop laughing. I don't know why this is so funny to me. I could feel the gray in my hands. I felt their skin. They were so light and fragile, like a little plush toy. I noticed an expression of uncomfiness on their face. They opened their mouths a bit without making sound, and I got worried that I would hurt them with my clumsy human movements, so I put them next to me into the bed to make them feel better. While manhandling them, I noticed a vibration starting on the front of my forehead, just as I can feel when in deep meditation. I suddenly stood up. We were changing positions. I was in front of the bed now, and they were in my bed, right next to my girlfriend. She was asleep the whole time and has no idea what happened. I asked her this morning, so I stand there, the gray looking at me again. I stretched my arms toward them. Again, they jumped I couldn't see any movement. It was more like switching space in the blink of an eye. After that, everything faded into black, and next thing I remember is waking up as if nothing ever happened. At first, I thought it was a dream, but the more I think about it all, the less it feels like a dream, especially that vibration on my forehead. I know this vibration. I felt it many times before, but never in dreams. I tried to go back to that space in meditation this morning, but sadly, that didn't help me to remember. Neither did it unblur the blurry parts. This one is under Reddit Scary Stories. Serial Grape Vampire is the user. Weird sticky notes keep showing up in my apartment. I live in a small studio apartment on the second floor of an older building. It's not in a bad neighborhood, but it's old enough that the hallways creak and the walls seem thinner than they should be. I would have never expected anything like this to ever happen to me. It's just me here, no pets, no roommates, no partner. I've lived here alone for over 4 months, and nothing like this has happened to anyone in my area. I'd like to say I keep things pretty routine before bed. I check that the door is locked and the single window above me and my little desk is latched shut. I've been doing it every night since I got here, almost without thinking about it. 2 nights ago, I woke up a little after 7 a.m. and went to the kitchen to make coffee. That's when I saw it. A bright yellow sticky note on the fridge, right at eye level. The handwriting was neat, almost careful, and it said, "Lock your window." I stared at it for a while, trying to remember if I'd left myself some weird reminder in the middle of the night. I don't drink. I don't take sleeping meds and don't leave random notes for myself. Still, I convinced myself I must have just forgotten to lock the window before bed, and maybe I wrote the note earlier and forgot. There couldn't possibly be any other explanation. That night I made sure the window was locked. Slid the latch over, pushed on the frame twice, just to be sure. I pulled the curtain closed tight. I even double-checked to make sure I actually locked it once before I went to bed. Despite everything, the next morning there was another sticky note on the fridge. Better. That one made my stomach twist. Maybe else? Nobody else has a key. I asked around, asked the landlord, even tried to get in contact with the people who lived here before. And I asked them if anything unusual happened to them, but they didn't even see my message. Front door lock is brand new, something I had replaced the same day I moved in. The building's secure. The front door downstairs has a code lock, and you need a key to get into the individual units. I called the landlord. He sounded annoyed, said he hasn't been in my apartment, and reminded me that it's against policy to enter without notice unless there's an emergency. He lives 2 floors down in the basement, and he's almost always there. He's not the type to sneak around. By then, I'd gone from unsettled to outright paranoid. I went out and bought a cheap Wi-Fi camera that connects to my phone. I set it up in the kitchen facing the fridge. I kept the lights dim so the night vision would kick in. That night, I kept one eye on the feed while I watched TV. Every time I glanced at it, the fridge was there, nothing moving. Around 3:12 a.m., the feed glitched, static for maybe 2 seconds. When it came back, everything looked exactly the same. I told myself it was just cheap equipment. This morning, there was another note. Stop. I was about to call the police when I'd noticed something I'd somehow missed before. The handwriting. It's mine. It's my handwriting. And now there's a 4th sticky note on the desk next to me. I didn't put it there. I would have seen someone walk in. See you tonight. Well, that's not creepy at all. Yeah, somebody's saying, do you have a carbon monoxide detector? Because maybe you need to check your carbon monoxide levels. It's true. Yeah, somebody else said, this is just a less well-written rehash of that carbon monoxide story. Well, I don't know. If it was, is it like a carbon monoxide demon saying, close and lock your windows, I want you to have the biggest dose of carbon monoxide you can. Alright, so this one is a glitch in the Matrix. And this is by anon_emos987. Same person 3 times. First time posting, long time lurker. This happened to me a few years ago and it still sticks with me, so I thought I'd share it here. This was about 2019. I worked as a waitress at a well-known sports bar and was heading for my evening shift. The drive from my house to my job was an hour, so I'm listening to the radio, taking in the trees and everything that I'm passing because it's fall and it looks so nice. It's about 15 minutes into my drive when I notice this young girl walking on the side of the highway. Based on what I glimpsed of her, she appeared to be a young teenager. She had dark braided in pigtails and a highlighter bright pink backpack. Like, you couldn't miss her. I remember it so well because I considered stopping and asking if she needed a ride. Being such a young woman, alone, I'm also a woman. But I decided against it because I watched too many crime documentaries and didn't want to end up in one, but I digress. I carried on with my drive. 30 minutes later, I'm passing this large bridge on my drive. This is like my I'm almost there moment, so I'm only about 10 minutes out and I see her again. Exact same girl. I first caught a glimpse of the pink backpack in the distance and immediately slowed down enough to look. Sure enough, same girl, same dark braids, same backpack, only I've been driving at least 80 miles per hour since I last saw her. There's absolutely no way that she walked all of that way before my car got there. I chalked it up to, I'm just imagining things because I don't know what else is there. But then I get into town and get ready to pull into work. Where our building is, it's like in the middle of a strip mall almost. You had to drive down like a long road and make a small circle before you hit our parking lot, and who was walking right on the edge of that circle? The same girl, same braids, backpack, everything. I can even still remember what she was wearing. I pulled into work and all of my coworkers were in the smoke spot out back so they could see me pull in, and they should see across the circle. The first thing I did when I got out was ask if they saw the girl over there. They all turned at once to look and she was not there. She was just gone. Vanished into thin air. Now, while this is a little strip mall besides our restaurant and a mom and pop shop that was closed at that time, like I don't know where else she could have gone or how she kept up with me on foot. This isn't the first time I've seen someone that no one else has, but it's the most recent. It still sits with me because I cannot understand it. Every conclusion I come up with is mediocre at best. As someone saying it could be a ghost, to me it sounds like a freaky skinwalker aka flesh pedestrian story where, there's a native girl on the side of the road walking and then you see her miles ahead and she's still walking but she's limping a little bit, and then again you see her and she's walking and not only is she limping, she's dragging one of her feet behind her, and then she appears in the middle of the road. Creepy AF. I hate that story. Paranormal Encounters. Puzzled-sort 3048. My husband was not my husband that day. This is my very first post, so bear with me. I'm going to be telling one incident out of a handful of incidents that happened at this property in 1993. I was pregnant with my second child, and my husband and I were getting ready to leave for a party at my mom's house. I was finishing up folding the laundry in the living room while my husband finished rinsing the silverware in the kitchen. I had my back to him across the room, and I could hear the silverware clinking in the sink and water running. We had been getting along all day, as we always did, as we had a very good relationship. We rarely argued, and he had never once raised his voice or his hand to me our entire marriage. Anyway, as I said, I had my back to him, and I was standing over our love seat folding clothes and stacking them in different piles. He was behind me about 12 feet away in the kitchen at the sink. After a couple of minutes, I stopped hearing the silverware clink in the sink, and it became quiet behind me. I assumed he had finished the task. All of a sudden, I heard something whoosh through the air, and then something hit the love seat low down between my legs and made a bam, boing, boing, boing sound, boing, boing, boing. I looked down, and I kid you not, there was a butcher knife sticking in the couch between my legs. I turned around incredulously and looked at my husband. He was standing at the sink but was facing me. His hands were at his sides, made into fists, and the look on his face was pure hate and anger. He was breathing in and out, and his face was becoming redder and redder. I was in shock. He had never done anything like this to me ever. I said, "What the hell did you do that for? You could have killed me." He said nothing. He just stood there, fists clenched, breathing in and out heavily with an angry look on his red face. I repeated myself, asking him over and over why he had done that. I started to walk toward him because I didn't know what to even do. I was looking him in the face, begging him to tell me why he would do something like that. We hadn't even been arguing or fighting or anything of the sort, so I got closer and closer to him. His hands began to unclench, and his breathing became more normal, and he turned toward the sink and reached up to turn the faucet off. When I got up close enough to touch him, I put my hand on his shoulder, and he looked at me and smiled. At this point, I'm beginning to tear up because I just don't understand what just happened and why he won't answer me. Then he looked at me and smiled. It was a genuine smile, and the look on my face must have been a look of confusion. I asked him for the 10th time why he had done it, and he literally looks at me in the eyes and asks, "Do what?" At this point, I became angry because, to me, it seemed as if he was trying to be funny now, but it absolutely wasn't funny because he really could have killed me. I began to raise my voice at him and demand that he tell me why he had done it. He was genuinely confused and had absolutely no idea what I was talking about. To this day, 31 years later, he does not believe this actually happened. It's important for me to reiterate that he never even raised his voice to me the entire relationship. He was the most gentle, kind, and loving man. He was quiet, even-tempered, and was actually one of those people who didn't like violence. I'm telling you, this was not my husband who did that. As I explained above, this is just one of the things that happened at this property. It's not even close to being the worst thing that happened there, but right after we moved in, me being a young, naive 19-year-old, I had a girls' night, I guess you could say, with a few of my best friends and did something stupid. We played with a Ouija board. Nothing happened that night, but after a few weeks of doing that, things began to happen at this property. Since that time in my life, I have always been one to tell people to never use a Ouija board. I truly believe that it opened a door in my home that night, and I will never, ever, ever use one again in my entire life. Depending on how this post does here, I might share the other experiences too, one of them being the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my 50 years of life. Oh man, that is so scary, especially the fact that he doesn't remember it. This is under Reddit Unexplained. This is by user Forsaken-Worker-8777. I know what I heard. A few years ago, would have been in around June 2019, I was staying at my parents' house back in my old bedroom. It was a little after 4 a.m. and all I remember before waking up was a dream about people shouting. That's all I remember from the dream. No context, just people shouting. As I woke up, the shouting crossed over and I could hear two people arguing downstairs. I was fully awake now, not dreaming. The argument was brief, rapid, and very heated. It wasn't my parents. Next thing I heard, a massive thump which set off the house alarm. It sounded like someone had kicked the door that housed the alarm. And that siren is enough to cause tinnitus. Or as my hearing specialist would say, tinnitus. I sat up in bed, caught between fight, flight, or freeze, one of those what do I do moments. The alarm was blaring and I thought it was drowning out the argumentative people until I realized that they had stopped. My priority was protecting my parents, so my impulses took over. I got up and ran downstairs on my bare feet, not caring if I found a couple of burglars laying in wait. I walked along the main hall, covering my ears before opening the door and turning off the alarm. All was silent until my father walked halfway down the stairs. I asked him if he had heard anything out of the ordinary. He said he'd heard the alarm. I told him I heard two people arguing and that one of them might have kicked the door. He said he only heard the alarm and didn't hear anything else. Adrenaline kicked in. As I thought, we were about to face off with a couple of intruders with bad intentions. We didn't even discuss calling the police. We just set about exploring the house. We checked the kitchen, the living room, and the main hall. Every door and every window was locked. There was no sign of a break-in. The house was otherwise empty except for my mother, who was still asleep. How she didn't hear anything, I'll never know. My father put the alarm back on, and we both went back upstairs. I got into bed, but I couldn't go back to sleep. I just lay there until the sun came up. I tried to piece together the course of events, the dream, the crossing over of the dream into the waking world, going downstairs and seeing that no one else was there, my father only hearing the alarm, my mother seemingly hearing nothing. I've told this story a few times, but this is the first time I'm posting it online. I guess it's better to put it on the record because I'd rather have it everywhere else than in my memories. All I know is what I heard, and it's not the first time I've experienced something like this. In fact, it's the second time. Truth be told, I hope it's the last time. Amen, sister. I feel you there. Reddit Ghost Stories. User GigaChad8055. I saw him after he died. Many years ago, an old neighbor of ours passed away. Back then, there was a belief in our area that if someone died, their soul would linger on Earth for 40 days unless prayers were offered. One night around 3 a.m., I woke up to go to the bathroom. From my bedroom window, I could see the front of our neighbor's house. It's about 100 meters from mine. And there he was. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me, but the figure was unmistakable. The posture, the dress, even the way he stood, it was exactly like him. His face wasn't clear, more like a shadowy outline, but everything else screamed familiarity. I froze for a moment, then ran back to my room, heart racing. To this day, I don't have a rational explanation, but I know what I saw. It was him, froze for a moment, then ran back to my room, heart racing. To this day, I don't know or have a rational explanation, but I know what I saw. It was him. This is under Reddit Experiencers. This is by user Nathan Eddy 23. Abraxas. This was the first word that convinced me what I was hearing was real, not the product of my imagination. I have never heard this word before, but it came to me about a week or two after I first started hearing voices. The very first thing I heard was, "You are protected." Months later, I heard remote viewer Elizabeth April say those exact words in one of her remote viewing videos. A message she was given about our potential for nuclear war and the aliens' reassurance that they would stop it. After that first sentence, I started hearing a lot. From numerous people and beings, some human, some living, and some dead, and some NIH, not inhuman. I don't know what NIH means. I also contacted my higher self, so all this gets a little confusing for me in terms of who is talking. It's almost like a stream of consciousness novel with written dialogue that does not adequately separate the speakers. But I could tell from what they're saying who is who. And then, months later, I could tell from the sound of their voice and their accents that it was different people talking. I get into what they told me without making this post too long. Give me time, there's a lot. The point is, I realized I was not crazy. I don't care if you believe me. I would not believe someone saying these things. But for myself, hearing an ancient Greek Gnostic term that dealt directly with what I am going through was the proof I needed to give, and completely. Reddit Humanoid Encounters. User Radiant_pollution 269. Encounter in Grand Lake, Colorado on June 14th, 2016. Hello all. This is my account of a very strange encounter I had in Grand Lake, Colorado on June 14th, 2016. A date I can corroborate through old Facebook posts. I've only been driven to share it now because I very recently happened to learn about the 1984 Isidoro Ferry encounter while watching a random YouTube video. And what was described in that encounter was roughly exactly what I and the others with me had seen. So on this particular day, me and my roommate at the time, my girlfriend and my girlfriend at the time and my girlfriend at the time's friend drove to Grand Lake, Colorado from Boulder, Colorado for an overnight camping trip. I love Boulder, it's beautiful. All four of us were 20 years old at the time. I suggested Grand Lake because it wasn't far, plus I was familiar with the area from having lived there for a while as a kid. We drove up through Estes Park and Rocky Mountain National Park and ended up camping at what is now known as Green Ridge Campground. That evening, definitely sometime after 10 p.m., but exactly when I'm not sure, we walked down a dirt road from the campsite to the area where Shadow Mountain Lake drains into the headwaters of the Colorado River. There was this incline that went down to where the river started, and we walked down there. One thing I'd like to mention is that the area was significantly much more heavily wooded at the time, as it was completely ravaged by wildfires in 2020, so yeah, there's like points that they put out there, like 40 degrees, 12, 26.3 north, whatever, but yeah, I'm just gonna let that be because that's just too much information. None of us had a flashlight or anything like that, and it was incredibly dark. except for how the moon illuminated on the river when you looked downstream. I remember that very specifically because I also very specifically remember coming up to the river, looking downstream for a bridge, which would have been really weird to have been in this location to begin with, or a fallen tree or something that could be used as a crossing, neither of which I could see, and again, did have a very good view of the river. The next thing I remember, we see from across the river what looks like a very tall person, maybe 6'5", maybe even 6'7", wearing a headlight. The light was particularly bright and clean looking, like a very clean looking white light. I also note that no human/humanoid figure was visible. It was just the light, though it basically appeared as if it was a human/humanoid with some light source on their head. I remember that it was briefly moving, then stopped and started staring at us. My roommate was drunk, also for what it's worth, I was the only person there who did not consume alcohol. The girls had like 2 to 3 beers, and my roommate was trashed. Started calling out in a friendly way like, "Hey buddy!" The light just stayed there without responding, but still very much seeming to be observing us. I don't remember how long it was staring at us, but it was extremely weird and uncomfortable. Eventually it started moving downstream a bit. This is where everything started becoming extremely strange and honestly scary because the light was moving in a very steady and fluid way, not bobbing up and down or something like you'd expect to see from a headlamp someone was wearing while walking across rough mountain terrain at night, and I mean very steady and fluidly. Then it disappeared. We were all weirded out by what had happened already, and we're talking about heading back, and then the next thing we see, the light is now on our side of the river, still no shape or form of anything visible, just the light. I'd like to emphasize again how I looked downstream on the river, which was the only clearly visible part of the setting for a crossing, and didn't see anything, including as far back as where the light appeared. I also looked at old satellite images on the Google Maps, and there doesn't seem to ever be any evidence of a bridge being there, which again, there wouldn't have ever been a reason for one existing in the first place. Basically, it did not make sense how it could have crossed the river and reappeared like that. We all decided that that was enough and walked back up the incline to the dirt road. Once we were back up there, we looked down the incline and saw the light still staring at us. Much closer now, but still without any obvious figure shape other than just the light. My roommate started belligerently screaming obscenities at it, and then it just charged at us. The speed and way in which it moved was very non-human, as in it was moving way too smoothly to have been just a headlamp. It also moved just a little too fast, not impossibly fast, but just a little too fast to seemingly be human. We were all terrified and booked it the hell out of there. I was always a very gifted runner, so I ended up way ahead of everyone else. I looked back once and just saw the others running behind me and nothing else after that. The girls were crying and locked themselves in the car once we got back to camp. My roommate went from fun, boisterous drunk to completely terrified and paranoid. He grabbed a hatchet and started telling me that it was alien technology and was trying to convince me to go back with him and investigate it. I had to talk him down from that and then eventually coaxed the girls out of the car. We hung out outside for maybe another hour after that, kind of just not saying much. We went to sleep, woke up the next day, and drove back to Boulder. I was always skeptical about what happened, but my roommate and ex always said that something weird happened that night whenever it was brought up. My ex ended up having reoccurring dreams about it, and my roommate had a bit of mental decline in the year that followed. It obviously ended up sticking with me as well, and in recent years, I've been less and less able to rationally explain it. I don't claim to know what it was, only that it wasn't normal, and it has stayed with me ever since. Ew, there's a what is it post. Long, thin, fast-moving bug. Many legs, brownish with antennae. Found in my apartment. Ew, it's creepy. This one is Reddit mystery. User true_crime_Trudy. Do you think that Diane Downs did it? In 1983, Diane Downs, a mother of 3 from Springfield, Oregon, brought her children to a hospital claiming they had been shot during a carjacking. Investigators quickly grew suspicious of her story due to inconsistencies and her unusually calm demeanor. Evidence, including blood spatter analysis, witness testimony, and the recovery of a weapon linked to her, revealed that Downs herself had shot her children in an attempt to pursue a relationship with a man who did not want kids. Her daughter, Cheryl, age 7, died, while Christy, 8, and Danny, 3, survived with serious injuries. Christy later testified against her mother in court, leading to Downs' conviction in 1984 of murder, attempted murder, and assault. She was sentenced to life in prison plus 50 years, where she remains today. Yeah, I don't doubt that she did it. I don't get it. If a guy doesn't want kids and you have kids, that guy can kick rocks, but she drove, I don't know if you've heard the story, but she drove out into the middle of nowhere, near, I think, a river and a bridge. There was a waterway. It could have been a lake too. But drove out there, got out, shot her kids, and then I think shot herself. And then when somebody showed up, made up this huge story, but 2 of those kids lived. And if the kid said, you did it, you did it. This one is by, it's Reddit Alien, and it's by user Cthulhu Bob 69. Alien Earth Theory. I believe the Mackinac went to the Xeno homeworld. The Midge knew how to call the Xeno in the last episode for starters. Plus, the Xeno has evolved to resist the other creatures. No eyes for the Midge, acid blood for the ticks. And I'm willing to bet we haven't seen the wasp yet because it's an ancestor species of the Xeno and it will have a striking resemblance, which means the back horns on the Xeno are vestigial wings. On top of all that, Noah Hawley said he's fascinated with the idea that the Xeno evolved into its form and wondered what kind of environment would produce such a thing. I don't even freaking know. Reddit Dreams. This is by effective_chair 5982. Have you ever died in your dream? I had a dream where I was walking into my room, but it felt off. I was looking around to see if someone broke it. And as I was walking towards my desk next to my window, and something grabbed me through on my mouth and my waist and killed me. I've had other dreams where I die. That was just my most recent. Oh, that's weird. This is by Reddit No Sleep, and the user is Orange PLR. When I was a kid, everyone I know played a horrible prank on me. This is something I should probably be speaking about with a therapist. I know I would, or I have been, but that's not really an option anymore. In fact, I couldn't tell you how many times I've told the story to various medical professionals. I'm 30 now, 20 years since it happened. I just want it to stop. I was a pretty average kid, I think. A little weird, but every kid is a little weird. I had an older sister. We fought like 2 cats. I had a couple good friends, most of whom lived on my street or 1 street over, and we would meet after school and play until it was time for dinner. My life was fairly ideal. I played soccer, I think. Honestly, I have a lot of trouble remembering much of my childhood, but I remember that I got a Nintendo DS for my 10th birthday, and we had a big party in the backyard. Practically the whole neighborhood showed up. My birthday was just before school got out for the summer, so the air buzzed with excitement, and the evening was warm and felt more alive than other nights. The grown-ups started a fire in our little fire pit, and they sat around it and drank beer while we ran around. I was allowed to stay up past when I usually went to bed, and the other kids chased fireflies with me and roasted marshmallows until late. I remember going to bed happy, excited for summer, and exhausted. I fell asleep quickly, the peel and stick glow and the dark stars and moons shining on the ceiling above my head. Waking up the day after my birthday, something felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it. I hadn't had a nightmare. It wasn't that. I slept better than I could really remember ever sleeping. It was late, I realized. That must be it. My mom usually woke me up around 8 if it wasn't a school day. She said it was a good habit to be in the routine of waking up early and starting your day on the right foot. By the light streaming in from my windows, the slightly muggy heat in the room, I figured it was already 10 a.m. or so. I smiled sliding out of bed. It must have been one final birthday treat letting me sleep in. She had let me sleep in the day before, too. Of course, although on my birthday itself, I had wanted to get up as early as possible. "Mom?" I called into the hallway, poking my head out the door. No answer. I frowned. It was Saturday, so my dad was definitely already at work, but my mom wouldn't be. My sister wouldn't be home either. She had left the night before to spend the night at her friend's house. She was 13 now and allowed to have sleepovers, for which I was eternally jealous. I decided she must be out front in the garden. I put on a shirt and left my room. I smelled coffee, but there was none left in the pot. There were dishes in the sink, too, with remnants of eggs stuck to a pan. It wasn't necessarily alarming, but it was strange. Even on days I slept in, there was always breakfast left over for me. I opened the front door, opening my mouth to call out to my mom, but instantly froze. Halfway up our walkway was the mailman. He was on the ground, sprawled out awkwardly on the cement. Fresh blood pooled beneath him in a gruesome splatter. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't move. His limbs were bent at horrible angles, and his face pointed away from me. It almost looked like some omnipotent force had lifted him into the air and then slammed him back down. The package he must have been delivering lay a few feet away, the cardboard dented and soaked in red. I didn't need any confirmation he was dead. It wasn't a question. I had never seen a dead person before. Sometimes my parents had watched horror movies, but that hardly counted. I backed into the house and closed the door behind me. My mind was racing too fast, and my heart felt like it might burst out of my chest. Everything in my body was reeling so much that all I could do was move slowly in a faux sense of calm. "Mom?" I called out again into the silent house, my voice breaking. "Mom, are you home? Something happened outside. Mom!" No answer. No one answered. The house felt way too quiet. All I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. I had to brace myself against the wall as I made my way to my parents' room because I was almost shaking too hard to hold myself up. "Mom?" I pushed open her bedroom door. It creaked, the sound almost deafening against the silence that blanketed the room. Our old gray cat Gumbo weaseled her way through the crack and slipped out into the hallway, brushing against my leg on her way. I saw a lump in the bed. For a moment, I thought it was just a pillow, but then I realized it couldn't have been. The bed was made and all the pillows were accounted for. Leaning against the headboard. "Mom, are you asleep?" It came out as a whisper, even though it wasn't like I had been trying not to wake her up. I wanted her to wake up badly. I think I just somehow already knew. Something was hanging in the air. This heaviness, like the whole world had been blanketed in a thing that was empty and hot and dead. A desert popped into my head, a place that was so far away from everything and completely devoid of anything, devoid of life. When I pulled back the covers, the shock washed over me like an electric zap. Every one of my veins and bones and muscles felt 20 degrees hotter than they should have been. There was blood everywhere. I could barely see any section of the sheets that wasn't soaked in it. It looked like the cherry juice we sometimes made from the tree in our backyard, squashing the berries with our hands and laughing as the sticky syrup trickled down our wrists. Her eyes were open, her mouth was open too, wide open, like she was about to scream. I gagged, stumbling backwards and almost falling down. My legs felt like they wouldn't work anymore. I was in a daze as I stumbled back to the kitchen. The eggs on the pan seemed like they were mocking me now. I knew my parents had told me what to do in an emergency, but all of that was gone from me now. This didn't feel like an emergency. It felt more like a horrible nightmare. I pinched myself on the arm just in case. The neighbors, that was it. I was supposed to call my neighbors. The number was on a sticky note next to the phone. My fingers shook as I dialed the number. They picked up after 3 rings that felt like they took 1 year each. I heard a sort of crackling sound like someone was moving the phone around. Hello? My fingers shook as I dialed the number. They picked up after 3 rings that felt like they took 1 year each. I heard a sort of crackling sound like someone was moving the phone around. Hello? Hi. Cleared my throat, trying to get rid of the lump firmly lodged at the back of my tongue. This is Jackson from next door. I heard some sort of giggle, a choked one, like they were trying to hold it back, and then some hushed whispering. Hi, Jackson, a voice said. I assumed it was the mother, Mrs. Winston. Is everything all right? Can I help you with something? Something happened. My mom. Oh, honey, Mrs. Winston said, her tone gentle, but something about it felt deeply off. My stomach twisted. Why don't you head on over here, We'll figure out what's going on together. Okay. I remember hanging up before she said anything else. Something about her voice was unnerving me. Still, I didn't know where else to go. I slipped out the back door so I wouldn't have to walk past the mailman. Gumbo watched me go. I knocked on the neighbor's door. No answer. I knocked again. Still nothing. I stepped into the flower beds, peering in through the windows. Someone was lying on the couch, their head tilted back like they were staring up at the ceiling. For a moment, that was what I thought was happening until I saw that their chest was opened up like a patient on a surgery table. All guts and organs and blood, so much blood. It was Mr. Winston in his sweater vest and brown dad shorts. Dead like the mailman, dead like my mom. Something came over me and I burst through their front door. It was unlocked, which I hadn't really expected, so I went tumbling into the room, landing on my stomach, my face slamming into the floor. Face to face with Mrs. Wilson, who lay dead in front of the phone. Her eyes were open too. There was a fly on one of them, crawling across the white, pausing every few seconds to rub its hands together. That's so gross. I had started to cry. It was finally hitting me that this was real, not some dream, and I desperately wanted my mom. I scrambled to my feet, nearly throwing up when I realized my face was covered in her blood. I swiped at it with my hands, trying to wipe it away as quickly as possible. Then instinctively I licked my lips. Horrified, I braced myself for the coppery taste of blood on my tongue. But it never came. It was sweet. I hesitated, trembling incessantly before cautiously raising one of my red fingers to my lips. Sweet. Memories flooded my mind, memories of baking with my grandmother the sweet syrup we would sometimes pour into the mixing bowls. It was fucking corn syrup. I ran to my father's work, which was on the other side of town by the time I got there. I was close to passing out and drenched in sweat, but it had made it a little easier to get here with the road completely devoid of cars. There were some parked on the side of the road, or every now and then in the middle of it, but none of them had people in them. Some of them had blood, thick and red and gooey blood. The nice receptionist that was always at the front desk and always gave me candy when my dad brought me in had her head against the computer. Her hair was matted with red liquid, as if someone had ripped out entire chunks of her scalp. Before I could think too hard about it, I wiped my finger across the side of her head and licked it. It was sweet, too. I felt like my brain was going to break, like I was standing on the edge of something completely incomprehensible. I shook the woman. She flopped like a rag doll. I sobbed, shoving her, and she slumped to the ground, her head knocking against the tiles. "Wake up!" I screamed at her. "I know you're not dead." She didn't move an inch, just stared unblinking, her mouth hanging half open. I ran into the room my dad usually worked in, scanning it for his workspace. I couldn't remember where it was, just that it was around halfway back and close to the wall. In every cubicle, someone was dead. Sometimes they looked halfway peaceful, as if they'd been caught by surprise, but most of them were eviscerated in one way or another. Entrails hanging out, bones showing, blood sprayed against the walls, even some of the faces ripped clean off. It was like something unseeable had swept through the town on a rampage, but all of their blood was made of corn syrup. In a brave moment, I even touched one of the organs, something that looked like a strange, deflated balloon, and it jiggled, but more like plastic than a human body part. At one point, I swore I heard a giggle behind me. I whipped around, but no one was there. I found my dad at the water cooler, sitting against the wall, cone paper cup still gripped loosely in his hand. He stared straight ahead, blood leaking from his eyes, nose, and mouth, like he'd exploded from the inside. "Dad?" I whispered, grabbing his shoulder. "This isn't funny. Please stop." There was a strange look on his face that I could just barely make out through the red, almost like a smile someone would only make if they were trying very hard not to. I walked back home down the middle of the road, balancing on the yellow lines to have something to focus on, because I was fairly certain if I stopped walking, I wouldn't start again. When I got there, I climbed into bed and closed my eyes. I didn't know what else to do. Eventually, after what must have been hours and hours of lying there, I drifted off into a restless sleep. I woke up to someone shaking my shoulder. I screamed, scrambling away from them, immediately wide awake and terrified. "Whoa!" My mom backed away, smiling. "Sorry, buddy, I didn't mean to scare you." I was breathing hard. I looked her over, clutching my chest. She was completely fine. She looked it, at least. She stood there in a white blouse and blue jeans, her hair tied up like always, her eyes bright and happy. What day is it?" Her smile faded and she frowned a little. It was then that I noticed the smell of bacon wafting in from the kitchen. "It's Sunday, bud, remember? 2 days after my birthday, so yesterday had been real. What happened yesterday?" She placed the back of her hand on my forehead, tutting softly. "Did one of those neighborhood kids you play with get you sick, honey? Do you feel okay?" I dropped it because I didn't know what to say. I convinced myself maybe I really was sick. Maybe it had been some kind of feverish hallucination. And I was so relieved to see her, I didn't want to think about any of it anymore. I went to eat breakfast sitting at the table between my dad and my sister, and everything was normal. But when I left the house later that day, I saw it. On the walkway leading up to our house, there was something pink on the pavement. A faint pink stain, like something sweet and red and sticky had been there recently scrubbed away. Like I said, it's been 30 years. I've been feeling like I had almost recovered from that incident. I'd asked everyone I knew countless times about that day, but none of them seemed to have any idea what I was talking about. But still, I had almost let it go and had never happened again. Not until today. Today, when I walked into my therapist's office, it seemed strangely quiet. There was usually music playing, something soothing and soft, and there were people in the waiting room and at the front desk typing on the keyboard. But today, nothing, no one, silence. I let myself into Dr. Sheldon's office, perplexed, which is when I found her dead on the carpet, her blood sprayed across all the walls, even dripping from the ceiling. It was crazy, I know that, but I immediately tasted it. Sweet. I rolled her over and her eyes were open, a strange smile on her face. This time I did something I didn't think to do as a kid. I checked her pulse. She's alive. I don't know what to do. I can't believe they're doing this to me again. Do you think this is funny? No, I don't. That's pretty messed up. And the fact that your therapist would do that to you, I'm thinking this is like some made-up shiz. And to get the whole town in on it, and the workplace and everything, I don't think so. It's too much work, too much money. Anywho's, let's go to our first music break. On this break, we have Mr. Jeff Hilliard with Finger Bang Your Day, Multitude, Consensual Sex Fan, and Silicone Wave. Mr. Jeff Hilliard is from Los Angeles, California. He's got a new song out. It's like Self-Lover or something like that. I'm going to have to look it up and let you know after break. But yeah, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this music break.
When your life is a never-ending train wreck, and you feel like you're drowning in a sea of regret, with a bit of oppression pressing down on your neck, it hurts so bad. When your overwhelming hatred kills your heart's desire, and reality starts looking like a dumpster fire, you start bitching to me, but you're preaching to the choir. You don't need to be so mad. 'Cause sometimes we hurt, sometimes we cry, sometimes we're sure there's no reason to try. When the whole world goes completely insane, open your heart, stand up and sing. I'm gonna finger bang my day. Yeah, yeah, I'll finger bang my day. That's right. You gotta make the choice to give it all you've got, and make your day moan with pleasure, really make it hot. Because your day deserves a lover that pulls out the stops. Come on, it's not so hard. 'Cause sometimes we hurt, sometimes we cry, sometimes we sure there's no reason to try. When the whole world blows up in our face, what else can we do but stand up and sing? I'm gonna finger bang my day. Yeah, yeah, finger bang my day. Hey, what are we really doing? We can't live in a world that has this much hate. We have to get honest with ourselves. We have to take stock in what our part is in all of this madness. We have to let go, and we focus on giving love, setting that intention. And each and every single one of us gets up every day with the intention to give love. And we do it. We go out there and we give love every single day. Each one of us gets out there and makes love to our day, giving our day a multiple orgasm. I got molar moves, got that molar too. You think it's wrong? Back of the head too long. Fuck that. Check these molar moves. You need a molar too. I can do no wrong. Back of the head long, never gonna cut it. All these hookers sweet on me. Look at them chasing me, showing me that ass. And I banged up snatch. I do this shit for free. Cut down your mama till 3. She's taking selfies with the mullet like it's history. How can I maneuver you with that pussy, dude? You sit like Buddha waiting on it to come to you. My lines are straight to the point. She shows me gratitude. So what's your latitude? Let's adjust your attitude. Head with a alligator, double dually Lamborghini. All up in a silly little yellow polka dot bikini. I got molar moves. I got that molar too. You think it's wrong? Back of the head too long. Fuck that. Head with a alligator, double dually Lamborghini. All up in a silly little yellow polka dot bikini. Check these molar moves. You need a molar too. I can do no wrong. Back of the head, I'm never gonna cut it. Alligator, double dually Lamborghini. All up in a silly little yellow polka dot bikini. You're like the butt of a butter knife cutting up panini. So climb back in your kangaroo pouch like a rolling genie. These moves are hot, these locks I got. This power cannot be disputed and it can't be bought. So you can find me in the studio with all these thoughts. You wanna bite my style, but you can't be what you're not, neighbor. I got molar moves, I got that molar too. You think it's wrong? Back of the head too long. Fuck that. Check these molar moves. You need a molar too. I can do no wrong. Back of the head, I'm never gonna cut it. Got that motherfucking molar. You wanna touch it?
Yeah. Next time you come around here with your bitch ass, just remember how my molar makes your hoes pussy drip, drip, drip.
I got molar moves, I got that molar too. You think it's wrong? Back of the head too long. Fuck that. Check these molar moves. You need a molar too. I can do no wrong. Back of the head, I'm never gonna cut it. I got molar moves, I got that molar too. You think it's wrong? Back of the head too long. Fuck that. Check these molar moves. You need a molar too. I can do no wrong. Back of the head, I'm never gonna cut it. Never gonna cut it. Cut it. Do you wanna go for a ride in my consensual sex van? Do you wanna go for a ride in my consensual sex van? Let me take you far away from all this huff and puff. Between our love, like a pair of doves flying high above, where nothing can touch us, touching softly. Don't let me go, I won't let you go. This is eternity with me, baby. Sex Echo, just get in the van.
I just got a package, I can't wait to get home. I spent all day tracking the shipment on my phone. All that she was lacking, I ordered custom. I can't wait to get some, take it to the bedroom. Bitches always nagging, now I got the air. I send the bitches packing, going my way. I have a new attraction, don't care what you say. It's better in every way, now baby it's time to play. We're gonna make us a tape and show everyone the way. Cause I'm going cause I'm going my way, riding up Silicon Way. I see on the game with my new real dog. I'm gonna play. Just second way to Mount Silicon Way. She is here to stay. She's my new real dog, and it's time to play.
My dreams.
Voulez-vous coucher avec moi?
Fais-moi l'amour.
Je suis amoureux.
Je pense toujours.
Enchanté.
Tu es charmant.
Ma chérie. Mon
Tu es
petit
charmant.
Ils étaient le nipple.
Tu es chaud. Fais-moi l'amour.
Like living on a super yacht, making love to a robot. It's like owning a football team, but having sex with a robot. It's like winning an Oscar and having a Grammy when you're fucking a robot. It's like saving a family with a newborn from a fire, but you're fucking a robot. I'm going my way, riding up Silicon Way. I see on the game with my new real dog. I'm gonna play. Just second way to Mount Silicon Way. She is here to stay. She's my new real dog, and it's time to play.
Welcome back, and thanks so much for hanging out with me tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Tonight it has been story time with me, TessaTNT, and we've been delving into different variations of Reddit. We're all over the place. But before we get back into that, we have our thought of the hour. And this one says, do all the good you can by all the means you can in all the ways you can in all the places you can. This one is under Reddit Ghost Stories, user Timo10710. A very important story. Need y'all's opinion. Hello everybody. About a week ago my uncle visited us from Germany. We're living in X country for privacy, and he wanted to visit his my grandfather's grave to pray for him. We're Muslims, and next to his grave is a grave for a famous wali, a man with a ton of wealth. And when he was checking it out, he flipped a stone, and on the underside of it was a paper with decapitated bird tied to it, with weird sketches, hairs, and words from the Quran and blood, so he decided to burn it with my other uncle, and ever since he's burned it, he's had nightmares and creepy stuff happen to him. Like a couple of things in his house would light on fire randomly, and yesterday he swore that he saw a cat sitting on one of his children while he was sleeping, and when we followed it, it crawled under a bed and disappeared in front of his eyes. I think this has taken a huge toll on him. I actually need advice. Thank you all regardless. Glitch in the Matrix. This is by any_literature 8040. I went to another dimension? This is the most unexplainable thing that has ever happened to me, and I think about it often. We were not under the influence of anything. This happened when I was about 16 years old. 10 years ago, I lived in a small desert town in the middle of nowhere. Everybody knew each other, and it was very tight-knit. My best friend, I'll call her T, was very close with my mom since she was always over. She was basically like a sister. She was at the house with us one night along with my other good friend, who was also my neighbor at the time, called her S. T was spending the night and was watching a movie in our living room with my mom. Me and S had went to my backyard and were just talking, hanging out as teenagers do. We were out there maybe 15 to 20 minutes before S decided to go back home since it was getting late. She went home, which was right next door, and I went back inside announcing to my mother and T that I was tired and going to bed. I went to sleep and woke up the next morning. I walked into the living room and my mom and T looked confused and started grilling me, asking where I'd been all night. I recounted the sequence of the night and explained that I had simply went to sleep. They argued that I wasn't in my room. They shook out the blankets and looked all over for me, went outside, looked for me and S, and even drove around the neighborhood hollering our names. And we were nowhere to be found. They thought I snuck out because that's what teenagers do, but I never snuck out. My mom gave me plenty of freedom if I did want to leave, so sneaking out wouldn't even be something I would do. I told them that, and we carried on. My friend S confirmed that she went straight home, and so did I. I don't know what happened that night, but it is the strangest thing I have ever experienced. Sounds like y'all might have been abducted. Right, let's see. Ooh, what is it? It looks like some sort of spike. Tiny E found in my sheets. No idea what it could be. Weird. Alright, this is Reddit Alien Abduction. The user is regular_fan_8273. Was I abducted? I've never seen a UFO, nor do I have any recollection of being abducted, but there's something very unsettling about my childhood memories. I was raised in a safe and loving household, but as a child I lived in constant fear of some very strange things. One of my first memories of fear was of our local theater that had those comedy and tragedy masks painted on the building. They are basically two masks, one smiling and one frowning, but they had no eyes, just black spaces. I suffered from unbelievable night terrors, nightmares. I was unbelievably afraid of being alone in my room and going to sleep. I hated my bedroom window and swore I was being watched even though it was on the second floor. My parents just thought I was a sensitive child and did their best to try to calm me. The only person that seemed to understand my fear was my great-grandmother, who thought I was being watched by fairies. She told me to always keep the cat in my room at night, as fairies hate cats. That kept me feeling safe for the time being. Then I remember being in the shopping mall and walking past a bookstore, and there was a display of the book Communion. I can't even begin to describe the feeling of terror I felt seeing the cover of that book. My knees buckled. I felt as though I was going to be sick, and just from seeing the face of that thing, the nightmare started up again. I still live in constant fear at night. I still have spells and nightmares. I still make my cat sleep in my room with me. I've always, as a child and an adult, kept my bedroom windows completely blocked with curtains and never open. I've never told anyone about this, as it seems a bit embarrassing. Well, what was on the freaking cover? I'm gonna have to look at that cover and see what is on it. What did she say it was? Communion. Okay, I just looked, and it's called Communion, A True Story, and it's got basically the head and neck of an alien. Creepy, big old black bug eyes and stuff. Yep, poor chick. She really must have been abducted. This one is Reddit experiencers. User ludicrous_overdrive. I've had an utmost intensive psychedelic experience, and I'll share what I think is the history of humanity, assuming I wasn't lied to for about 3 hours straight. Ooh, this is drug-related. Right now, I'm on the low, but I'll try to sound normal, so please forgive me if this comes off as conspiracy quack. I barely read those anymore. I'm not some new age alien kind of person who's getting divine messages from a magical galactic federation of love and light or shit. Listen, let me first say that this could all be nonsense, something fed to me to just keep me distracted, or maybe I was shown something intriguing. First, I took a bit of psilocybin. I applied some headphones and a blindfold. I sat down to rest. I was being shown this film or visual with a narrative to it. I was in this facility somewhere in the Middle East testing myself in a laboratory where 2 needles would be injected into my arms and I would be tested for something. Suddenly, I don't know if it's related, this entity appears to me. I recall so many colorful black and red light cubes, like a game in the early 2000s with numbers and squares. Trippy shit. I was shot twice. This demon figure or black figure of light shot me, and I already knew how to handle bad trips. Just observe and feel and do not submit. Just watch and feel. Suddenly, as I'm writing this, I forget, but I know I was asking about my identity, who I was as a wanderer and such, but I knew that secret was kept lock and key, hidden so tight I would never know. Instead, I was shown myself as a reptilian. I wasn't reactive, I just became boring. Okay, I'll watch, I'll entertain you. First, this is where it gets into weird, vague territory, as my feelings of time shift and change. Somehow, as I write to you, let me say this. Apparently, and I really mean supposedly. Wait, let me say this first. This sounds incredibly stupid, forgive me, but it's obvious. But to continue, let's just pretend it's all true, I guess. Reptilians, as we call them, are not all evil. Wow, crazy, I know. let's not go space racist now. Crazy, huh? Let's be civilized and normal. Because I've read the conspiracies before and never really cared too much about them, those about Anunnaki, reptilians, Atlantis, ancient religions 3,000 years ago. But apparently, it's generally true, as in, such events did transpire. However, the specifics were not given to me, so it's imperative we maintain skeptical. And I encourage you to chalk it up to a crazy drug trip, honestly. First, some takeaways. You are the creator. You are infinity. Any troll entity or mind parasites are just distractions from your inner divinity. So set your anxieties down. Second, this could all be nonsense. Do not believe me. I'm only hoping for another who has seen similar experiences to relate to me. I could be trolled by what you deem negative entities. That's fine. I've dealt with this. Third, it was told to me by the trip that mankind's story is centered around Asia. There was an advanced civilization there, but one of the plates shifted, and that's basically what Atlantis is. Which is weird because I thought it could have been the Ricket structure. Ricket? So that's why you should remain skeptical, but when you take a look back, however, you realize there is a sunken landmass called Sunderland in Southeast Asia. The refugees supposedly, or the survivors supposedly took refuge in Tibet or Peru. Meanwhile, some other shit was happening. Sorry, the details get all loose here. This really does feel nonsense, but I guess that's just the stigma, honestly. Or, I don't know, maybe it's just bad shrooms. Bad trip. My original intention was to find something out about my history. Key locations: South Asia, the Middle East, Central America. These were all significant, supposedly. There were critical and key events occurred that changed mankind around 3,000 years ago or so. This happened after some other events. They're also confusing. It can really just be nothing. Nonsense again, I'm not sure, but I like to write this down so it helps. I was shown South America, a lot of tropical areas. I was shown some bits of some war or something, just some events I was mad about. I don't know why. I know disclosure has to reveal the history of mankind first, what has actually transpired here. The events of it all, it's all a bunch of shit. Space politics shit. That what keeps coming to my mind like we tried helping, but these assholes kept corrupting our messages, so we tried fighting them. And it just led to more shit. When I saw my state ID on the table, I just thought about war, the US military, the Gulf Wars that occurred before I was born, some shit. I ended up with far more questions than answers, but I know this so far. 1. Shit happened to mankind a while back. 2. My true origins remain locked behind obscurity and a key. 3. I was made to look at stuff involving reptilians. Am I a starseed from a race of lizard people? I don't know. I really don't know. That's the law of confusion for you. They won't tell me that. I like humans, but we are also monkeys. I like anime, though I like how soft and gentle you can express yourselves in fiction. I don't know, there's really no way to know. Maybe I was part of some alien space government that came to help humanity. Maybe I'm from the Galactic Federation, and I was a reptilian fighting other reptilians. I don't fucking know. It's really possible for this to all be a crock of nonsense, serious. Maybe the Orion aliens are a group of lizard people and greys bent on world domination alongside the Anunnaki. I don't know. This is literally basically all the conspiracy theories bundled up into more New Age slop to me, but it's what they showed me. Maybe it's nonsense. Maybe I am a lizard, but to be honest, do I care? I'll be what I want when I feel like it. I don't want to be a lizard person, if you can't already tell, laughing my ass off. But yeah, I guess we will see. Disclosure should happen in Asia if America can't do shit. It would and should start with archaeological artifacts. I know China has some shit. Disclosure is going to be about history of humanity. After this is over, I can go home. I am determined to see it through. Whatever they didn't tell me what density I was, I kept dangling fifth density over me. But they really won't tell me. Laugh out loud, I was even like, surely this is all just nonsense, a trick or a trap to make naive people believe whatever whimsical ideas. Sure, but also half true, half not type situation. That's all I have. Am I an alpha draconian starseed? I don't know. Why does my brain keep automatically ignoring anything about the other humanoids? I don't know. Am I a magical space wizard cat alien? I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter, especially if the universe is like a box of Legos you can return to at any time. Okay, buddy. Yeah, that's a lot. Thanks for sharing. Hopefully sharing helped you out there. This is under Reddit Paranormal Encounters, user neither-work5842. I probably sounds nuts. So for the last maybe 2 months or so, I've had encounters. I like to take naps in the middle of the day. Lately, I'll lie down, typically on my stomach, and feel things laying down on or next to me. I'm still fully awake when this happens. I live alone and have no pets. I actually feel something crawling into my bed or laying between my legs like a cat. I don't feel malevolence. What the fuck? Help. Pure Confidence 5722 said, a pet that passed? I had this with my previous dog until I got a new one. I'd hear her feet and nails running around and brushing against my legs. A couple of times I caught glimpses of her out of the corner of my eye. I've had this happen with another dog years ago, and I know others that have had the same thing. Yeah, my dog Gilly, we were best friends. Long story behind how we got together. She was adopted, and then they brought her back, and then I was able to adopt her. But she was amazing. She didn't want to leave me, and she lived to be like 21 years old. But she died, and I've seen her around the house a few times. It's freaking weird. And it's always like her going around a corner, so I see her body in her tail. I don't ever see her face. But yeah, it's happened a couple times. It's pretty weird. I've had a house that I lived in that had a ghost cat in it. I'm going to do a radio show with this guy named Steven, and he's had a radio show before. He's doing another one out of Cortez, Colorado, called Raven Chronicles. I can't remember what his other Chronicles thing was in Washington. I believe he said Seattle, but I'm not sure. But yeah, I was telling him about the house in Memphis that I lived in that had a ghost cat. It was a black cat. I saw it like 3 times, and it would run off behind the couch or different directions, and I could never find it. It would just disappear. It was so weird. Alright, this is under Reddit No Sleep, and the user is SummerCorner04. Something woke up in room 237. I've always believed certain places absorb energy, not just haunted castles or graveyards, but places where a lot of people pass through. Airports, train stations, hotels, especially hotel rooms. See, I used to work night security at one of the poshest hotels in Dublin City. 5 stars, marble floors, high-end clientele, that kind of place. You'd think nothing dark could touch it, but let me tell you, money doesn't stop the weird shit from creeping in. It started around 2:17 a.m. I remember because I was mid-yawn flipping through the camera feeds when the front desk patched a call through to security. A man's voice, panicked, breathless. "My wife's in the bath and I think she's not breathing." I snapped upright. Me and this other guard, Mark, rushed to room 237 on the 8th floor. The hallway was dead quiet, the kind of quiet that feels wrong, like the building itself is holding its breath. We pushed in. The guy was pacing around, soaked from the waist down. The bathroom door was wide open. I'll never unsee that moment. She was in the tub, completely still, water up to her shoulders, eyes open but not seeing. He dragged her out, tried CPR. I was counting compressions under my breath while Mark gave breaths. Her skin was cold, like, not just chilly, cold, like touching stone. I knew it was too late, but we had to try. Police arrived within minutes. The moment they stepped in, they told us to stop. One of the officers pulled me aside and said quietly, "She's been gone a while, a couple hours at least." The husband told me they'd argued earlier. He stormed out, came back, saw her in the bath as soon as she was just soaking, and went to bed. Said he only got suspicious when she didn't join him. No obvious signs of violence, no water overflow, no witnesses. They couldn't charge him, but between us, staff, cops, even paramedics, we all felt it, that gut pull, that something's off feeling. He checked out the next morning, quiet, calm, not a single tear. Room 237 was locked off for 3 weeks. Housekeeping deep cleaned every inch. Management said, "Accidents happen, life moves on." They reopened the room like nothing happened. No priest, no sage, nothing. Just fresh linens and a new bar of soap. The person who was first to stay in that room after the death of this woman was named Liz. She was a regular corporate client, stayed at least once a month. She always asked for a high-floor room. She got 237 without knowing a damn thing. Next morning, 6:50 a.m., she's at the front desk with her suitcase, and this looked like she'd seen hell. I was walking past when she said, loud enough for guests to hear, "That room is haunted. I didn't sleep a second. Something's wrong with it." She said she kept hearing dripping water all night, not just from the bathroom like it was coming from the walls at 3 a.m. The taps in the bathtub turned on by themselves, full blast. She walked in and turned them off, soaked her slippers, then 5 minutes later, the shower started. She swore she hadn't touched anything. She said she kept smelling something floral like old roses, but rotten like death-wearing perfume. We offered her another room. She refused. She said she was checking out for good and never came back. After that, room 237 got a reputation internally. Guests kept requesting room changes after one night. Some didn't even last that long. There was this German businessman who called at 1:03 a.m. whispering like he didn't want someone to hear, "I think someone is in my bathroom." I asked if he saw anything. "No," he said, "but someone is coughing, a wet cough." I went up. The bathroom was empty, but the floor was damp. Towels crumpled in the corner. The toilet had been used, seat up. Water moving like it had just flushed. The guy hadn't gone in all night. He checked out the next morning without breakfast. A honeymoon couple stayed there once. The woman came down at 4:12 a.m. in her pajamas crying. She said she saw a pale woman standing at the foot of the bed dripping wet, not moving, just staring. Her husband didn't see anything, but he confirmed the room temperature dropped 10 degrees in minutes. I checked the thermostat and it was set at 23 degrees Celsius. The room was at 14. No windows were open. I started dreading that room. Even walking past it gave me this tightness in my chest, like I was being watched. I'd made rounds and literally a speed walk past it. Once I was reviewing CCTV around 2:20 a.m., same time the original call had come in, and saw something weird. The hallway camera outside 237 glitched just for a second, but when I paused the footage and zoomed in, there was a shadow, not a person, a shape, just outside the door, like someone was standing there pressed against him. I replayed it 100 times. Mark saw it too. It's probably compression error, he said, but his voice shook when he said it. Management refused to shut the room. They said we'd get sued if we told guests unless you see something tangible, it's superstition, so we kept assigning the room, but we started calling it the bathtub room behind closed doors. The cleaners hated it. They'd go in pairs. Even when nothing moved, the mirror always fogged up on its own. Once one of the maids, Rosa, swore she saw the words, "Don't leave me," written in the steam, but when she called her coworker over, it vanished. Guests who stayed more than one night always complained of water sounds, dripping, running, gurgling, sometimes crying. One guy swore his sheets were damp every morning, like someone had gotten in the bed wet. Then came the worst night. 3:08 a.m. We get a call from room 237. The guest was an old man, solo traveler. Very logical, very composed. He said, "Someone knocked on my bathroom door from the inside, not once, 3 times. I sprinted up. When I opened the door, the room was empty. But the lights in the bathroom were flickering. Not just flickering, buzzing, and the bathtub faucet was trickling. Just enough to hear. That's when I noticed it. There was water, not just in the tub, it was on the floor in a straight line like footprints leading from the bath to the bed. But no one had walked, no one had opened the door. I put in my resignation a week later. Mark lasted a month more. He said he heard a woman humming in the elevator when he was alone. Hummed the same tune for 3 floors. When the doors opened, no one was there. Room 237 is still open as far as I know. They just keep painting over the mold and turning the mattress, but something lives there now, or maybe something never left. Not every hotel room starts off haunted. Some of them become haunted, and I was there when it happened. That's great, big. Oh yeah, Amazing-General-9000 said, "Dude, you gotta go back there as a guest and come back and tell us what happens at night. Get that lady her justice." Seriously, like, you should check it out. I wonder if there's any way of helping. Is this residual? I don't think so, because the lady died, she never got in the bed wet, so there's gotta be some sort of intelligence there. Reddit ghost stories. Actually, scary stories. User 1000 Andonites. I think the statue saved me, but I will never be sure. My visit to my hometown hadn't gone too badly, all things considered. Parents will be parents after all. The food was great, and time had gone by quickly enough. It was already the last night, and there was some comfort in walking around the quiet, timeless, snow-covered streets of my childhood, knowing that tomorrow I would be far from it all, back in the big city where I now belonged. They roll up the tarmac here at 6, my father was fond of saying, and the quiet Snowtown streets empty, even though it was barely 7 p.m., bore him out. But it wasn't true to say nothing that had changed, I thought, staring at the huge new statue in the town square, lit up in the evening by a complex arrangement of white lights. It was of a small, seated woman, a veil falling over her face, holding a giant cat like a baby. The cat, as big as a lion, appeared to be sleeping, although the look of despair on the woman's face as she stared down at the cat was intense enough to suggest otherwise. "I think it's based on La Pieta," I said, turning to Luke, my childhood friend and companion for this early evening walk around downtown. Another change. He had become widowed since I was here last, and our parents' comedy attempts to throw us together was straight out of a Hallmark movie. Poor Mandy. She had been one of my close childhood friends, although we had different effects and drifted apart after I moved, and she embraced the married life with Luke. I had been very sad to hear of the brutal car accident, which took her too soon. What? Luke frowned. I googled trying to bring up the image of the famous statue of Mary and Jesus on my phone, but my internet wasn't working. Rural internet. Luke placed his hands on my shoulders, looking at me with such a deep expression that for a minute I thought he was actually going to deliver a line like, "Oh, Lisa, you've become too smart for your own good with your fancy city ways." Instead he said, "They become alive at midnight." My blood ran cold, radiating iciness outward, so I felt I was freezing solid, about to fall over and shatter on the stone-cold pavement. A car drove by, its harsh moving lights casting long moving shadows. Then we were alone again by the still white lights of the statue. I stepped back from Luke. He had been around all my life, but it suddenly occurred to me I didn't know much about him. I looked up at his shadowed face. He had turned and stared at the statue. Luke? Mandy and her cat, the statue, they become alive at midnight. They walk about. He said it quite matter-of-factly. I cannot describe the terror surging in me. I just knew I had to leave, but Luke reached out again and gripped me tighter. It was an accident. Everybody knows that. Everyone in town. The police said, "The fucking cat." I braked. I wasn't going to run it over, but Mandy just ran out. I had told her to get rid of the goddamn cat. We were trying to have kids, you know. Everyone knows cats make women barren, but then she died, and they went and put this stupid statue which walks around. I don't even know where the goddamn cat went. I looked for it. I would have taken care of it for Mandy's sake. She loved that damn creature so much, so did I. I wouldn't have run it over, for you believe me, don't you, Lisa? His voice shrilled, his strong fingers dug into my shoulders. Later, I would find perfect circular bruises on my shoulders, but in the moment I didn't feel the pain. I was just trying to parse the torrent of words which had flooded my brain. "Please, Luke. You have to stay and watch them come alive with me," cried Luke. "I know you will see them too, Mandy. Mandy loved you. She was always talking about you. She wanted to come visit you. You'll understand. I'm not the only one seeing them." "Let me go," I cried, struggling to break free from his hands. Whoosh. Something large knocked Luke over, breaking his grasp. He fell backwards away from me. I heard his screams mixed with yowls of a cat. I paused for an instant and saw the silhouette of a large cat at Luke's throat. I was deeply confused. It wasn't midnight, but surely I wasn't thinking the statue was alive. Idiotically, I looked over at the town square, but the white lights were dark now and I couldn't see. Luke was trying to peel the cat away from him. "Run!" I whipped around and a small familiar woman walking swiftly away. I hesitated no more. I turned and ran towards the safety of my parents' place, my heels clacking on the empty, deserted pavements, leaving the howls and screams behind me. I never saw Luke again before I left early morning the next day. I wonder what happened. Did the kitty cat kill him up? I do not know. This is what you speak. Let me see how long this one is. Yes, so we're going to go to break, and then we'll get back in on this. So on this break, we have the amazing and talented Mr. Jeff Hilliard from Los Angeles, California, with Abandoned and Good Life featuring Jordy White. And then we have Miss Mia Savage with Not a Phase and Your Skeleton. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this music break.
Excuse me! You got a cigarette? Hey, you help a guy out with some spare change. Anything will do, man. God bless you. Can I just get your change? I missed the bus. I got these six right down. I'm not an animal! Moving like a steak knife. This is a good life. Dancing in the moonlight. I wanna be inside of you. We got plenty to do till the 1:45, and I know you wanna ride my Cadillac. Don't give me no flack, I'll put you flat on your back. Moving like a steak knife. That's right. This is the good life. Dancing in the moonlight. I'm a sexual phenomenon, and you know I'm a sexual phenomenon, and I know I'm a sexual phenomenon. We all know I'm a sexual phenomenon. Get money, get high. Don't care if I live or die. Get money, get high. Don't care if I live or die. Welcome to Classic World, the art gospel. Dance around these funky sets, jumping around in the ocean like you. I'm really cool because I have a train in the truck. Your God's not gonna save you. They're hiding behind the moon, watching your every move. This is the good life. This is the good life. This is the good life.
Get money. Get money. Get high. Get money. Get high. Get money. Get
Welcome back, and thanks so much for hanging out with me tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Tonight we have been doing a story time with me, TessaTNT, and before we get back into story time, aka Reddit, we have one last quote of the app. And this quote is, "The secret of life is not to do what one likes, but to try to like what one has to do." It does make it more pleasant if you do like it. Sometimes that's easier said than done. This is a Reddit ghost story by user Jen's Midnight Cafe. She wasn't as young as she seemed. So I once listened to this recount from a senior who went on a trip to his friend's hometown in northern Thailand. Back then he was still in university, and during long holidays he and his group of friends would always travel together, but this time one of his close friends, Sam, couldn't make it since he had business back in his hometown. The senior figured, why not tag along with Sam instead, as he'd never been up north before. Sam asked his mom and she agreed, but warned them to come home before 7 p.m. The senior didn't think much of it. It's probably just some countryside thing like shops or stations closing early. When they arrived, Sam's family welcomed him warmly. Mom, Dad, an older sister, and Grandma. Over lunch, he noticed Grandma sitting with her own bowl of red soup, slurping happily. Curious, he asked what it was. Sam's mom explained it was a local dish called lu, raw pig's blood mixed with minced meat and herbs. He was surprised. Normally pig's blood is boiled, so this was something else entirely. After lunch, Sam took him sightseeing. Again, Mom reminded them, be back before 7. He hopped on a motorbike and rode off. On the way, he noticed 2 beautiful girls looking like sisters, also on a bike. He smiled at them, they smiled back, and that was that, or so he thought. Later, fate brought them together again at the local market. Still shy, he only exchanged another smile before walking away, but after asking around, he found out one of the girls was the daughter of the grocery store owner nearby. Jackpot! He thought maybe he'd try his luck tomorrow. That evening, something strange happened. As he passed through the house, he saw Grandma cooking, but in the reflection of the glass shelf next to her, he noticed another face. Dark, burnt, peeling, looming right beside her own. He froze, snapped his head to look directly, but nothing was there. Brushing it off, he went to bed. The next day, Sam encouraged him to visit the grocery store alone and talk to the girl. Just go in, grab a snack, and ask for her number, Sam teased. Nervous but excited, he walked in. The girl was at the counter, writing something. "Excuse me, I'd like to pay," he said. But when she lifted her head, his heart sank. She wasn't young at all. She looked like a woman in her 40s. He thought he must have been mistaken, but then the woman said, "We met yesterday, didn't we?" Confused, he nodded, quickly paid for a snack, and hurried out. Outside, Sam burst out laughing. "So, was she pretty? Did you get her number?" "Here is." The senior cussed at him. Sam eventually explained that the girls they saw at the market weren't girls at all. One of them was that same auntie in the store. Impossible. The ones at the market looked barely 20. But Sam then asked, "Do you believe in ghosts?" Seeing was believing. The senior was convinced. So Sam explained, in his village, most families kept a spirit called Hikgara. The spirit licks its owner's face at night, making them look younger and more attractive in the morning. So kind of like a facial mask, but with ghost saliva as skincare? Ew. But the catch, once you own it, you can't get rid of it. If you die, it has to be passed on to someone else. And if it's neglected, the spirit becomes dangerous. The auntie at the store owned one. She'd once been a farmer, and thanks to the Fikgyas beauty treatment, she became popular, married well, and eventually opened the shop. That evening, they ran into her again at the market. This time, Sam told him, "Look at her through your legs." He pretended to bend down and peek, and when he did, he saw a monkey-like figure perched on the woman's shoulder, licking her face. Horrified, he snapped upright. She noticed their stares, and they fled. That night was their last before returning to university. Over dinner, the family asked how he enjoyed his visit. He said that he loved it, but when he mentioned the Fikya, the whole room went silent. Grandma asked how much he believed in it. Half-jokingly said, "Yeah, I believe if I had one, girls would definitely like me." Grandma smiled. Later, as he was heading to bed, Grandma stopped him. She asked again if he truly believed and if he might be interested in one. Before he could answer, she opened an old jewelry box and pulled out a real gold necklace. She tried to hand it to him. In his mind, ghost or not, it looked valuable. But just as the necklace was about to touch his hand, Sam's older sister burst in. "Don't touch it!" Sam rushed him off to bed, refusing to explain. The next morning, he apologized, thinking he'd offended them, but Sam's sister explained. It wasn't anger. They were protecting him. That necklace wasn't just jewelry. It was a vessel, a way to trick someone into inheriting the spirit. You see, Grandma wasn't even Sam's real grandma. She was his grandfather's mistress. His grandfather had fallen deeply under her spell, all thanks to the Fikya. And died without realizing it. Now that she was old, she needed to pass the spirit down, but no one in the family wanted it, so she tried to pass it to him. And remember why Sam kept warning him to be home before 7 p.m.? In the village, not every family cared for their spirits. Those neglected Fikya, or spirits without masters, would wander the night, growing violent. So if you're ever offered something too good to be true, be careful. You might be accepting more than you bargained for. That is spooky. Reddit scary stories. Serial rape vampire. Someone keeps knocking on my 8th floor balcony door. Someone keeps knocking on my balcony door. Now, let me explain. I live in an average apartment, not great, not terrible. I've only been here a couple of months. I moved so I could be closer to my parents who need more and more help in their old age. Honestly, this place has the cheapest option I could find. The neighborhood has always been a little sketchy, petty theft, break-ins, and, that sort of thing, and that's why I chose the 8th floor. I figured if someone wanted to rob me, at least they wouldn't be climbing 8 stories up to do it. That's what makes the knocking so unnerving. The balcony door is the sliding glass kind, thin enough that a strong person could probably shatter it. First time it happened, I thought I imagined it, a soft tap, 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 like knuckles against the glass. I froze in bed, waiting. Then it came again, louder. Knock, knock, knock. I should mention something. When I was a kid, I used to doorbell ditch people. I'd come up with the clever ways to do it, hiding in places so obvious nobody thought to check. I knew the thrill of being just out of sight while someone looked around annoyed, thinking they were alone. That's exactly what this feels like. The knocking happens every few nights now, always between 2 and 3 a.m. I've stopped sleeping much. I've checked the balcony, no footprints, no signs of anyone climbing. 8 floors up, there shouldn't be. Last night, though, I made the mistake of pulling the curtains open quickly after the sound started. Just once. There was nothing there. Nothing except a faint smudge on the outside of the glass. A greasy oval right about where a forehead would press if someone had leaned close to peer in. I scrubbed it off with shaky hands. Tonight it's happening again. The knocking is sharper, more insistent. I haven't looked this time, I don't want to, but then I realized the rhythm: 3 short knocks, a pause, and 2 more. My old signature, the one I made up when I was a kid. I freeze, listening. After a long silence, I hear footsteps. Slow, dragging, moving away from the balcony. I almost convince myself it's over. Then my phone buzzes on the nightstand. A text from an unknown number. It just says, "Not as fun when you're the one being ditched, huh?" My hands are shaking when I glance at the balcony door. Just for a second, the glass is dark, but I can see it, a long, still shadow pressed against the frame. Whoever, or whatever it is, never left. Ew, that's gross. Yeah, that's pretty damn creepy. This is under Reddit Alien Abduction, user hot-business3565. My story. When I was about 6 years old, I was at school. It was time for recess, and I had just come out from the bathroom and was walking down the hall towards the doors leading outside to the playground. I noticed that my shoe was untied, so I stopped, bent down, and began tying my shoe. Then suddenly, it was like I was frozen and half awake, half dreaming. My body was quickly lifted upward, and I was still looking downward at the ground. And right before I went into the ceiling, I saw another kid walk by and look up at me as I went into the ceiling. Somehow I was able to lift my head just as I traveled through the ceiling to see the air ducts, wires, metal beams, and concrete. I felt no pain, no physical sensation of the ceiling at all. Then, as I fully passed through the ceiling, it suddenly stopped lifting me up and kind of dropped me back onto the roof of the school. I don't have any memory of being on board a ship or seeing a ship or seeing or interacting with any beings. I remember looking around and seeing the huge AC unit on the roof and some other strange mechanical things like metal vents or something. I still felt like I was dreaming, but now I wasn't frozen. It was like I was being controlled, like I was aware but being led. I walked over to the edge of the roof and briefly looked around and down at all the kids and teachers outside on the playground. And without hesitation, I simply walked right off the roof and landed on the ground on my feet. No pain, no physical sensation at all. When I landed behind one of the recess monitors. Her name was Nina. She quickly turned around, looked at me, and said, "What are you doing over here? You need to be over here, where I can keep an eye on you." And I was staring at her like wide-eyed in a daze, and she could see it. I looked back and up at the roof. I had just stepped directly off though. My estimation was about 15 feet or so, maybe more, maybe less. Now I could feel again, and it felt like I had just woken up from a dream, but I couldn't tell if this was the dream or reality. Because of what I had just experienced, it seemed so real. Nina barked at me again. Get over here before I write you up or for being insubordinate. And I did, because she was mean and I was still so confused. Disoriented, trying to make sense of what just happened. If I just dreamed it, then why wouldn't I just dream of walking down the hallway? Why would I dream of being lifted up and made to step off the roof? Deep down, I knew almost right away, like I know now, it was some kind of abduction. But I truly don't know if maybe they aborted because I was fighting whatever was holding me in position. Maybe that's why I was dropped back on the roof, or worse. Maybe I truly don't remember what happened after I was lifted past the roof and only remember when I got dropped back onto the roof and made to walk off and back into recess. The only other time I had experienced something similar to this was a few years later in a dream. I'll save that for another post. I don't remember much else about that day, but I do remember telling my mom when I got home and her stopping dead in her tracks, staring at me with fear in her eyes, and pausing before saying, "Oh, you're just making that up. It's okay. You have a creative imagination." Part of me felt like she knew, another part of me felt like she didn't want to know because she could tell I wasn't making it up. I'm still not sure which. I told a few past girlfriends about it when they asked if I believed in aliens, and none of them took it well. They all looked at me similar to how my mom looked at me, so I never brought it back up, and they never asked me about aliens again. Reddit glitch in the matrix user no_baby_4110. Multiple things have finished into a new dimension in my apartment. I just moved into my new apartment and it's going well, but little did I know I would be losing so many things. First thing I lost was my charger for my AirPods. My parents helped me move in and my dad has an older phone than me, so I gave him my charger. Before he left, he put it on my dining room table and I woke up the next day and it's gone. The next day, I swear to God, got my vape out of my purse and I put it back in my purse because I was going to go to the grocery store. I look down as I'm putting it in my purse right after hitting it and the pod is gone. Fully disappeared in front of my face. I didn't even hear a pin drop. This was 4 weeks ago. Now, 2 days ago, I came back from class with my vape in my hand like I always do. My roommate even watched me hold my vape with other things in my hand. I set my vape and other things down on top of my dresser. I go out and start cooking lunch. My friends come over to collect the things I got for them, which was in my hand with my vape when I come home from school. I go back to my room and my vape is fully gone. There's a space in my room next to my bed and my dresser that holds my nightstand and my rug, and both of my vape pods were missing in this little area in my room. I swear I've looked everywhere. I've taken my bed apart, my dresser apart, and my closet apart. I looked through the vent on my wall and I examined for cracks in the floor and in my furniture. I obviously have to look some more, but the fact I've had 3 things disappear into thin air in not even a month has me fully convinced there's a pool right next to my bed. I got my mattress topper and bed skirt in the mail today. I have to do some laundry as well. I plan to do a very last extensive search of my room If I don't find anything, I am fully convinced. Please don't come at me if I broke a rule. Just let me know, and I'll just delete this post. I don't know. It could be the takers. It could be your friend has sticky fingers. I do not know. There's a creepy picture of some sort of smoky shadow thingy. Wife keeps seeing this, a small boy-sized blacker than black spindly shadow creature. She first said she saw it run behind 4 trees in the forest. Thought it looked like a small boy, but she said the limbs would just be all over the place. It moved fast and could see in her peripherals. We saw it outside our window on the street. She dreamt of it last night. On her dream, it was blocking her way down the stairs. It said in her mind, "Your husband is wrong. I am real." Could anyone heard of something like this before? It's freaking me out, and I don't know where to start. She says she's not scared of it, but it doesn't seem nice. You know, that's kind of like the thing I saw in my brain. I want to say Bloomfield, but it was basically the middle of Farmington. But it was more of a, I don't know, humanoid being. That one's just kind of weird. Dogman? So this is Reddit Dogman, user OK-.5545. Which Dogman eyewitness seemed the most traumatized/disturbed? So I've recently started binge watching Dogman Encounters Radio again and noticed for a creature that most people describe as demonic, they seem awfully calm, or at least more calm than should be. By comparison, I'm subscribed to West Sasquatch Chronicles and noticed the trembling fear in all majority of the eyewitness's voice, even when the encounter was short and virtually harmless. So what would you say is the best example of undeniable fear or trauma you've seen come out of a person from any Dogman testimony? The best I think of is episode 90. Bang_claw_5965. Look up Martin Groves and any interview he has about his Dogman encounter on the LBL. Live-Habitation6415 said, "That one is traumatizing to listen to. I can't imagine what it was like to experience 2 manly men just humbled with some sort of interdimensional nightmare." Better Selfie said, "I just listened to his LBL encounter and thought how scary it must have been for Martin and his partner to see a bunch of Dogman and Bigfoot at the same time." Well, that is pretty interesting, really. Well, you generally don't see all of those together, but I have heard of people seeing grays with Bigfoot, walking Bigfoot onto the ship. People are like, "Oh, Bigfoot is an alien then," but people have been walked onto ships too, against their will. Like, there's this mind control thing going on, where they're still gone up into the ship. Are they in league with the aliens? I do believe that Bigfoot are in league with Fae, but there's a lot of interdimensional stuff. To me, it's just some cloth, basically. So this is Reddit No Sleep, user 10_pro25. I found a missing girl at the bottom of a hole. Last year, my friends and I decided to do a 3-day hike on Wachita Trail. Ben, Sean, and I had done multi-day hikes together on different parts of the roughly 210-mile trail before, and were hoping to knock out another section before the summer was over. The section we decided to hike this time had a public camping area at the base of the trailhead that left to Wichita Trail proper, which we had decided to take advantage of. We had parked Ben's car at the ranger station near our endpoint and carpooled in line to the camp. When we arrived, the sun had started to set, but the place was bustling. Kids were riding bikes around the footpath, and families were sitting around grills enjoying the scenery. Places like this weren't really my cup of tea. I preferred more secluded, quiet areas to set up camp, but something about the communal atmosphere gave rise to a sense of nostalgia for the times of my family when my family took me camping at places like this. By the time we set up our tents, night had fallen, and the crackling of dozens of campfires filled the air. We ate a quick supper of roasted hot dogs and a few beers before heading to bed. That next morning, I awoke to distant shouts echoing through the campsite. I sat up onto my elbows and listened, trying to make out what was being said. Before I could determine what was being yelled, I was startled by a quick slapping at the front of my tent. Worming my way out of my sleeping bag, I unzipped my tent flap and poked my head outside. Shivering at the cold morning air, I saw Ben and Sean in front of their tents, pulling on their hiking boots. "Get your clothes on, man," Ben said as he saw me. "What's going on?" "A kid's missing, probably wandered off last night," answered Sean, cinching his bootlaces tight and standing up. I turned back into the tent and started getting dressed. My heart sank as I heard the shouts become more abundant as other campers joined in, calling out the child's name. "Sarah! Sarah! Sarah!" I hoped that she was just in the shower room or had woken up early to go to the playground nearby, but I couldn't help but think of the countless stories I'd heard of kids being abducted or disappearing into the woods only for their bodies to be found miles away or not at all. Ben and Sean were already a few campsites down from ours and calling out to the woodline. When I came out of my tent, I hurriedly tied my boots and joined them. "Do we know what she looks like?" I asked. "Brown-haired, blue-eyed, 8-year-old girl named Sarah," came a voice from behind us. I turned to see a college-age guy walking towards us, ahead of another guy and a girl who were around the same age and wearing packs. "Any idea which way she went?" Sean asked. "No, her dad said that she was asleep in her tent when he went to bed around 11 last night and was gone when they woke up about 30 minutes ago. Said her shoes and flashlight were missing." "I'm guessing they've already checked the bathrooms?" I asked, looking towards the brick structure at the center of the campground. "Yeah, we checked," said the girl. "No luck. Listen, we're going to head to the trailhead to look while the rangers get the main search organized." I asked them and they gave us the go-ahead. "Do you guys want to help out?" the first guy asked. "For sure," Ben said, looking at me and Sean as we nodded in agreement. "We'll grab our packs and meet you there in 5. We made it back to our site and threw some essentials in our packs. I realized that I had left my water bottle in my car, but Sean, being the prepper that he is, gave me a spare. Once packed, we strapped on our packs and headed towards the trailhead, leaving our camp set up, since it was clear our trip had been delayed. The shouts had tapered off as people began to gather around a park ranger at the center of the camp area. Walking towards the trailhead, we heard sobs coming from a campsite just off the path. The park ranger was sitting beside a woman who could only be Sarah's mother, crying into a pink pillow in the shape of a unicorn, while a deputy stood attempting to speak to the girl's frantic father. If you're going to use scent dogs, that chick just contaminated that pillow, which is one of the best scents that a dog. That the head scent is one of the best scents to have to find somebody. Anywho, let's get back to the story. We glanced at each other as we moved past the breaking scene. The expressions on each of our faces were of sorrow, tinted determination. James, Kristen, and Paul were the names of our new companions, and they were each outdoorsy types like we were, and were just as well equipped. We met at the trailhead just outside the camp area and gathered around a large wooden map and formulated a plan. There were several offshooting trails which snaked through the valley. Main Street was the 8-mile circular trail which returned to the trailhead and connected to Wachita Trail at the top. Baker's Falls was a cutback trail which led to a waterfall 4 miles from the trailhead, and Vista Trail led up to the mountain 5 miles to the north. We decided that it would be best to split into groups of 2 in order to hit each trail while staying as safe as possible. Paul and Kristen volunteered to take the Vista Trail. Sean and James decided to take Baker's Falls, leaving Ben and I to take Main Street. It was agreed that we would meet at the trailhead in 7 hours, giving us time to be thorough with our searches and be back before nightfall. We knew cell service would be spotty, if not altogether non-existent, but we exchanged numbers on the off chance that we needed to contact each other and ensured we each had the Rangers' station's numbers. When we set off, Paul and Kristen headed north at the split and began their arduous trek up the side of the mountain, while the rest of us hiked east towards Baker's Falls. We didn't talk much aside from occasionally calling out for Sarah. We were afraid that by making too much noise we might miss hearing her and didn't want to distract each other and miss any sign of her. Just before noon, we arrived at the split for Baker's Falls. Sean and James headed down the mountain while Ben and I continued on Main Street. It was a nice day given the circumstances. If it were any other time, I would have been greatly enjoying myself, taking in the cool air and absorbing the majestic scenery, but for obvious reasons, I didn't pay any of that much mind. After a while, James and Sean's echoing calls faded away as we made our way towards the intersection with the main trail. We took our time listening intently between each call-out. The trail began to turn north up the mountain at a sharper angle, slowing us down quite a bit. It was fairly taxing, and I found myself calling out less as I began to run out of breath. It had been a while since I had last hiked with a pack. I noticed Ben starting to struggle as well, so I suggested we take a break. After all, we had been going non-stop for several miles at this point. We found a shaded spot next to an outcropping of rocks just off to the trail, took off our packs, and pulled out some snacks. We sat silently eating and listening between deafening bites of granola. At first it sounded like a bird. In the distance behind us, a ways off of the trail, I heard a shrill cry. I stopped chewing and tapped Ben. "Listen, you hear that?" After a moment it echoed again, a muffled cry that was almost certainly that of a child. We both jumped to our feet and called out, "Sarah!" The cry responded. "Shit, she's up there!" Ben cried as we both made our way around the outcropping, leaving out our packs where they sat. "Sarah, keep making noise, we're coming!" I yelled. Cries became clearer as we trudged our way up the mountain off the trail, slipping on loose rocks and sticks. We were getting close. Ahead of us, we saw what appeared to be an opening on a small plateau through the trees. The vegetation began to thin out and the ground became saturated with flat, rough gray stones which were much different than those that we had seen so far. As we made our way to the opening, it became evident that the crying was that of a little girl. The trees gave way to a large glade of gray stones, no trees or plants inside. "Sarah, where are you?" Ben called, straining to catch his breath. "Down here!" a small voice squeaked from somewhere in the glade. In the middle of the opening was a small rise in the stones. Once we were about 15 feet away, I saw that it was the raised lip of a large hole about 7 feet across and blacker than night a short way down. "Jesus! Sarah, are you in there?" I called down into the abyss. "Yes," she replied through her sobs. Her voice echoed up towards us. She was a long way down. "Are you hurt?" I can't stand up," she cried. "Damn it, Ben, did you put any rope in your pack before we left?" "No, did you?" "No." "Sarah, are you bleeding?" "I don't think so," she said weakly. "It's too dangerous to try to climb down there. These rocks could come loose and cave the whole thing in," said Ben, testing the edge of the pit. I pulled my phone from my pocket and unlocked the screen, but found there was no service. Ben did the same and shook his head. "Ben, get back to the trail and get help. I'll stay here with her." "All right, I'll be back," he said before running back into the trees. "Just hang tight, Sarah. We're getting you some help." Silence fell over the glade as Ben's footfalls faded into the distance. "Sarah?" Her sobbing had stopped and several seconds passed before she made another sound. "Please come and get me." Her voice was weak and pleading. "It's really dark in here." I turned my phone light on and held it into the opening. It illuminated a few feet down, but no further. I still couldn't see her. "I promise we're going to get you out. It's not safe to come to you right now. I don't have the tools, and I don't want you to get hurt any more than you already are." I knew she must have been scared, and I felt horrible that she had to stay in that hole a second longer. I thought about dropping my phone to her for light or to play a game, but it might break and be of no use to either of us. I thought about my pack and hated myself for leaving it at the trail. I had a headlamp in the front pocket and some paracord I could lower it down to her with. "Sarah, I have a flashlight and some snacks in my backpack on the trail. I'm going to go and—" "Don't leave me," she cried. It was a loud, tormented, almost angry scream. Okay, I won't go anywhere." Silence returned to the glade. Looking at the opening and the rocks surrounding it, I noticed something odd. The rim of the pit was nearly a perfect circle. It definitely wasn't a natural formation. The rocks appeared almost as though they had been deliberately stacked. "Sarah, how did you get in there?" "I fell." "Did you fall from up here, or is there another way in somewhere?" There was no response for a moment. "I slipped and fell from up there." There was no sign of collapse or any side of the pit. I thought that maybe it was a stable structure after all. "I can't climb out. My leg hurts really bad," she groaned. "Can you please come down here with me? I'm really scared." I really considered it, even if the structure was stable enough to hold my weight without collapsing, the hole was too wide for me to brace against the sides, and it would take a skilled rock climber to safely climb down with as small as the cracks and ridges of the walls were. I really wish I could, but it wouldn't be safe for either of us. There was no response. "Are you thirsty?" I asked, remembering the water bottle I had clipped to my belt. "Yes," and clipped the bottle and held it at the side of the opening. "Sarah, can you see me?" "Uh-huh." "Good. I need you to move as far as you can against the wall. I'm going to drop this bottle down to you, okay? Okay. I listened for a movement, but heard nothing. Sarah, can you move against the wall? I did. I paused for a moment. Sarah, are you sure? This is kind of heavy and I moved, she screamed. Jesus, all right, I mumbled as I dropped the bottle into the inky blackness. I waited for a thump and a cry or it to clatter against the floor, but no noise came. Did you get it? She didn't respond. Sarah, did you get the water bottle? Still no response. Shit, I knocked her out. Sarah, I got it, she said, breaking the silence. I breathed a sigh of relief. Don't scare me like that, I laughed as I pulled out my phone. Still no service. It had been nearly an hour and a half since Ben left. I did a quick calculation and estimated that it would be at least another hour before he returned with help. I sat next to the edge for a while, letting a sense of relief and accomplishment wash over me. We had done a really good thing here, and I was more than happy to sacrifice a hiking trip to help find this girl. I sat for a while longer waiting for the sound of the cavalry rushing up the hillside, but was met with a blood-curdling scream from the pit. Sarah, what is it? Peter, there's something in here with me. Another scream. What is it? Sarah, what is it? I don't know. Please come down here. Please, please. Sarah, I'm going to drop my phone down to you. Use the light and see what it is, okay? She continued screaming. I pulled my boot off and removed my sock, turned the light on my phone and slid it inside, layering the sock on it for more cushion. I'm dropping the phone. Try and grab it, I yelled over her screams as I let the phone fall. I watched as the dim glow of the light through the sock disappeared into the darkness. A few moments later, the screaming stopped. Sarah, did you get the light? What was it? Again, nothing. Sarah, answer me, please. I got it, she said calmly. Is the light on? I don't see anything. There was a long pause. It broke. Oh. Okay, that's fine, but you're all right now? Please just come down here, Peter, she said in a whimper. I'm really sorry, but I told you it's not... I froze. Sarah, how do you know my name? There was no answer for a while. Answer me, Sarah. How do you know my name? It's on your bottle, silly, she giggled. That's not my bottle. A friend let me borrow it. There was no way she could have known my name. At the very least, my full first name. I didn't think Ben had called me by name in a short time. He was there, and even if he did, he calls me Pete. Come down here, she said in a raspy whisper. No. Come down here. I stood and started to back away from the pit. Down here. Down here. Help. Help me. The voice screamed, changing pitches. I stumbled back and fell onto the rocks as I heard what sounded like bone scraping against stone from within the pit. Ew, that's yucky. Down here, help, here. The voice no longer resembled that of a child's, no longer that of a human. I stood and ran. I ran as fast as I could down the side of the mountain as unearthly screams bellowed from behind me. I fell again, this time rolling forwards, striking my hip against a stump, sending a wave of dull pain through my body. I stood and ran as best I could back to the way I had come. I wasn't sure where I came out on the trail, but I knew which way the trailhead was. I ran until I couldn't hear the screams and kept running until I met a ranger, coming up the mountain towards me at a jog. No, don't go up there, I shouted breathlessly. Calm down, you're safe. Are you hurt? He asked. I'll be alright, but you can't go up there. That's not Sarah. That's alright. Sarah's safe. Your partner's found her halfway up the Vista Trail. He took me by the shoulders and started guiding me down the mountain. Where's Ben? Did he make it down? Yeah, Ben and the rest of your crew are down at the campsite waiting for you. Y'all did a good job. Really appreciate your help. We walked for a while before I was able to calm myself. What is that glade up there? That pit? What the fuck is in it? He sighed and gave me a quick glance. Nothing that you ought to worry about, he said with an uneasy smile. We made it back to the camping area and met up with Ben and Sean, who both understandably had a few questions. However, I didn't have time to answer them since the Rangers were shutting down the area and we had to leave. We packed up our things and loaded my car just as they were closing the gates. On the way back to Ben's car, I told them what happened at the glade. Ben said the ranger freaked out when he told him that we had found what we had found and told him to stay at the campsite until he came back with me. Apparently, when Kristen and Paul found Sarah, she told them her mom was calling her from the woods when she went to the bathroom that night, so she followed her voice up the trail but got lost. Sean thinks to this day that we're pulling some wild prank on him, but Ben and I know what we heard, what we saw. I haven't gone hiking since, and I don't think I will for a while. Dang guys, we finally made it to the end! If I could quit pressing stop, it would have happened a lot faster, but luckily I did, and heard there was a glitch in the sound, so we got a better recording for you, I believe. But thank you so much once again for hanging out with me tonight on We Are Paradox India's late night in the Rockies. It was my honor and pleasure to hang out with you tonight and read you some trippy stories. Thank you to all of our friends on We Are Paradox Media's Facebook, Spreaker, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and wherever you may be listening Beyond The Omniverse tonight. Had a wonderful time, and I can't wait to do it again next weekend. We got some more trippy TikToks, some crazy stories to share with you, and then I just checked out a book. Pretty sure it's gonna be good. It's called Food to Die For, I believe. And it's actually by a paranormal investigator whose show I really enjoy. But don't forget, fam, we are all in this together. Together we can make the world a bit better. And together, my friends, we are Paradox Media, because without you, there really is no us. So until next time, nighty-night, love and light. Have a wonderful rest of your evening and a wonderful week ahead. Don't work